And thank you for coming to City Hall for today's really important announcement. I'm joined with the majority leader of the City Council, President Axon is with us. We have Councilperson from the 1st District, Sinead Williams. We have in the 3rd District, Tasha Diaz is with us. Obviously, we have the Commissioner from the Yonkers Police Department, PBA President Keith Olson, CLSA President Mike Koch is here. Dan Romano, who is the candidate for Yonkers City Court Judge, is with us today too. Lisa Giziaco, our Chief of Staff, Deputy Mayor Jim Cavanaugh, our police officers, certainly the brass who are out there each and every day working hard for the people of our city. Let me start off by saying one thing. I want to thank the police officers, everyone in this department, each and every single day go out with honor, with their uniform on, in honor, to serve and protect the people of this community. There are so many wonderful things happening here in the city of Yonkers in terms of quality of life, in terms of how business is going. We have an announcement coming up soon that the Target will be coming, so you can't really say American, right? The Target's coming. And that happens because there are people who want to come and make an investment in the community. When they see this community, and they see what this community is about, what it has to offer, the diversity of our community, 100 different nationalities from the Yonkers home, and 60 different languages. Since taking office, I've worked closely with our police commissioner to reimagine our police department. That's what we've been doing. 2012, the outlook was bleak. We were under Justice Department review, and our relationship with the community certainly needed improvement. But through hard work and in-depth conversations with our community over the last 8.5 years, I am beyond proud of the strides that we've made, not only in terms of crime statistics, but in the way we engage the residents of our community. There are nearly 40 community police outreach programs. Nearly 40. And we know that activity we talk about stop and shake, which is a wonderful idea. Pizza with the police, coffee with the cop, the police explorer program, just to name a few. But there are over 40 different outreach programs that were created to allow for the police department, for our police officers to have direct contact people that they were sworn to serve and protect. We've enacted over 100 different reforms and policy in our policy and procedures, such as the banning of chokeholds, which we did a long time ago. We also have our officers are trained in de-escalation, and of course, because we know this is a high-pressure job. It is a high-pressure job. There's a lot happening. Police officers show up to the scene. It's not usually for a positive situation. It's usually because they have a job to do and enforce the law. So early internal investigation systems have been employed. So there are issues with an officer. We will know it early on and avoid. Just look at what happened with George Floyd. That officer had 14 different instances. That would never happen. Within 2 or 3, we would have that strength. We would have dealt with whatever the issues were, and we would have made the changes that we need to make. So as results, they all speak for themselves. I mean, we recently did a poll, which is part of our agreement with the Justice Department. There's an 80% approval rating of the Yonkers Police Department and the job they're doing. There's a 42% decrease in crime, the lowest crime rate in recorded history. So we're going to make reforms to our police department, working hand in glove with our police unions and our police officers, and see a reduction in our crime, the safest city of our size in America. We're building police force that reflects our community. We have a lot more work to do here, but we are double black officers than we were in 2011. And nearly 80% decrease in excessive here we are in August, on Mueller. There's not been one complaint of excessive force against these officers in the city of Yonkers. And that is something we're very, very proud of. And yet today marks another step towards making the Yonkers Police Department the best in the country. And after discussions that first started in 2015, Yonkers is now launching its body blown camera program. Now, everyone's looking at this, and you're probably saying to someone, this is a pop program. There is a tremendous amount of capital investments that have to be made to make this program work. So, there's a procurement process. There's the city council. We need to make sure that the money is put in the budget. There's a capital investment that has to be made. The first year of this program will cost us about $1.7 million. The annual cost of this program will be $1.2 million. And so, working with the city council, we have decided we're going to make the initial investment, buy the equipment that we need to buy, and have this in full operation. But in the meantime, we're going to, which will explain to you more, we have a company that has allowed us access to the program as a pilot project for the next 10 days. That's critically important to us, knowing exactly what are the kinks that we need to iron out. What are some of the other areas that we need to continue to negotiate our agreements? But 2020 has been monumental, as we all know, including a national awakening as to how society should fight for justice and equality. Tragic death of George Floyd reignited conversations within police departments all across this country as to how we can continue to be more transparent and better serve the community. People of Yonkers are not seeing that spike in crime that you see in New York City. Why? Because there is a trust that exists between the men and women every single day who go out to work on our behalf and the residents that they're there to serve and protect. We should be proud of it. I know I am. And I say that each and every single day. I will support my police department, and I'll continue to support them, provided they continue to operate in the manner that they have operated for a while now. After, like I said, some productive discussions with everyone included, I want to more importantly, discussions that took place with Keith Olson and Mike Hodge. I want to say thank you. Yonkers is very fortunate to have a forward-thinking DBA, CLSA, that's willing to work with the department in a realistic way to say, you know what? We know that policing and the police officers are not the sole problem that is being faced by the African American community. But we do know that there's reform that needs to be made, and we're working on that. We know that there is injustice in the economic system, in the education system, and yes, of course, in the criminal justice system. And we'll deal with all that as we move forward. But today, we have a victory. A victory for Yonkers, a victory for our police officers, and a victory for the city council as well as the party list. I'd like to ask, I'm going to ask Councilman to come up in a second. I'd like to ask our police to come up, police commissioner to come up, just to explain the program to us. He's been a great commissioner, talk about baptism by fire. He's in the fray. I looked over here and introduced Charlie. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It really is a historic day for us to welcome in this body of camera pilot program. And it doesn't happen with the speed that we've seen here in a lot of other places. Because what you need is you need buy-in, you need stakeholders, you need cooperation from every entity. So you start with the mayor. It all starts with him. You know, the mayor is a listener. The mayor is a person who really loves the city so much. And he's very, very cognizant of policing, how we police. And so this was at the top of the list of our community stakeholders that they thought that body the mayor goes to the city council, finding ways to fund it, and we're extremely grateful. We have a great relationship with the city council, and it's fantastic. We have a tremendous law department, because there's so many different things we have to iron out. But what's also is the cooperation and the relationship we have with our two unions, the Yonkers PBA under President Olson and the Yonkers CLSA under President Mike Koch. These things don't happen. There's so much in other agencies. There's so much discourse between the unions and management. In this case, we all sat down at the table. We recognize this is a thing. This is one step to move towards more transparency and more community trust. You know, I will say, you know, I've done a lot of studying of body-worn cameras in the past couple of months. It's not a panacea, and the equipment is fantastic, but really the rubber hits the road with respect to the implementation phase. Do you have a robust policy about when to turn it on and when to turn it off? There's so many different things. So what we did was, just so everybody understands, we built our policy, which is the most important aspect of body-worn cameras, around a study by the Police Executive Research Forum in conjunction with the COPS office, which is the Community-Oriented Policing Service, which is an entity of the Department of Justice. Ron Williams from COPS is an amazing progressive thinker. You should look him up. He's gotten so many things done in policing, and he was one of the authors of President Obama's cornerstone for 21st century policing, which is another thing everybody should read. There are 4 pillars there. But the body-worn camera program is really great. We matched it around the Police Executive Research Forum study. It's one of the most understudied, we are one of the most understudied disciplines of all professions. It's really amazing how little we get studied. Think about prescription drugs and how long it takes to take a vaccine or a drug to the market. In 2014, for example, there were only 5 published research papers with respect to body-worn cameras. 5 in 2014. Move fast forward to 2019, there were 119. So we're moving in the right direction of making sure not only do we understand the tool, we understand how it's being implemented, but are we doing it in a way that we're getting the most out of it? And I think the body-worn camera pilot program is going to do so much for that. So again, I want to thank everybody. We have plenty of questions to answer if anybody has them. I know the mayor wants to bring up Councilwoman Correspondent Naden. So happy to answer any questions after she speaks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as you know, to make this type of policy happen, we have to obviously have a good commissioner, great brass, excellent relationship with the union, but none of it can happen without the support of the city council, which establishes the policy and makes the funding available to the program. So we have the leading advocate for us in the city council, Public Zone, Benedict Isaac, who's our council majority leader, but has been there working with the city council, each and every one of them, doing a wonderful job in seeing that we get this program started and moving forward. So I'm going to ask her to come up and say a couple words at the city council.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me? I prefer to keep my mask on. Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today as we look to implement a 3-month pilot program for body cameras in the City of Yonkers for our police department. And it's a momentous day because we understand the value that something like this can bring to the City of Yonkers. Our police department duty is to protect and serve, and they do so. But sometimes what can happen is that there can be challenges within that duty. So what we're looking to see from this pilot program is that those that fail to protect and serve are filtered out, that would highlight when they are protected and served, that would enhance relationships and trust and community rapport. So that's why I'm so excited about this. And in 2015, when I introduced bringing a pilot program to Yonkers, I knew then the importance of it, and that importance and that value is still there now. What changed is the city council that had the will to do so, a city council that understood how important this is and how vital this was to our community. So I thank the part of the city council that unanimously voted to support this, that together understood why this is so valuable for our community. And again, I just look forward to seeing the results of the pilot program because I know that it will show how relationships have improved. It will show how this is helpful to the department against frivolous or false complaints. And as they also work out the kinks, it will make sure that when we implement this full time, that we bring forth the best body camera program. So I'm thankful to all the parties that took part of the negotiations. I'm thankful to the city council who I worked with on this, the mayor, the commissioner, and everyone who made this possible. This is a very exciting day for the city of Yonkers and its community. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. I'm thankful for the community that championed for this, because it's through their advocacy and through the fight for racial justice and equality and all the things that are important, is that this program also came to the forefront and is being implemented. Thank you all.
Thank you, Majority Leader. You know, one other, and I'd like John to speak about this. One of the things that we've been talking about quite a bit, the council brought up, was the whole idea of implicit bias and having the implicit bias training for our police officers, not just in the academy, but for those who continue to serve and protect us. He's got, I think, a very exciting announcement to make on that, especially in terms of how we can work hand in glove with one of the area universities. So I'll let the Commissioner tell us about it.
Thank you, Mayor. So obviously, with police reform, there is no silver bullet. It's a portfolio of strategies that you employ to make sure that you're giving the best quality police services to your clients, because at the end of the day, our residents and the people that live and work in Yonkers are our clients. You know, we don't have metrics that we can use as far as like in a financial institution where we're making money or we're losing money, but our political capital and our community capital is really, we're hitting the sweet spot when we're dealing with low crime and a high satisfaction with how we're using our police services with our community. So to that end, we've been doing a lot of thinking and a lot of listening in the past several months, and one of the things that has come up is the implicit bias training. We're now contracting with what is referred to as principal policing. So there, in that training, which we're going to have next year, is a portfolio of strategies about understanding implicit bias, but also understand the communication piece. And so we are contracting with a company that will provide, and here's the thing that's very important, because I'm a research-based guy. I believe that research matters. I believe that we shouldn't ever do anything quickly for the sake of quality. So if we want to get this right, we have to be careful about how we're listening and what we're looking at. And the truth is that there's one program in particular there was a study done in Chicago with principal policing where they studied the entire Chicago Police Department. And after the training was implemented, excessive force complaints went down, rudeness complaints went down. So that's a great baseline to start with. So we've adopted, we're going to do that program. We're going to do some training for this in September. And then we're going to roll it out department-wide throughout next year. We also are partnering with Georgetown Law School with a program called Project ABLE, which ABLE stands for Active Bystandership in Law Enforcement. So if you want to circle back to what happened in the Floyd murder, you had one officer doing what he did and murdering George Floyd, and then you had 3 officers standing there and basically not intervening at all. So we believe that this active bystandership in law enforcement is a way that teaches our officers that as much as it's important that we protect each other physically, and that's what you hear about in police profession, police culture all the time, that officers back each other physically, we also need to back each other up behaviorally, emotionally, and so we believe that this active bystandership program, which focuses on health and wellness, how to appropriately intervene with a fellow officer if there's potential misconduct. What we really want to do, and I think what this training does, is it heads off these types of incidents way before they get to the point of a murder. And that's what we're looking to do. We know, and the other thing that's important that I want to note about how great our Yonkers officers and supervisors are, most people probably don't know, but there's 18,000 individual police departments in the United States, 18,000. We do not have a federal police system, so there's obviously metrics that you could probably figure out the least needful of reform and the most needful of reform. And you have to be mindful that each individual 18,000 police departments all have their own needs. So you have to include the community in that, you have to include the police officers, and you have to figure out where you're at. It's not like a hospital situation. If you go to an emergency room, one person's having a heart attack and there's 5 doctors around them, there's equipment, there's, hurried activity, and there's another person sitting there with a broken ankle. And we have to understand that each police department has its own individual triage, and that triage is going to lead us to find out where we're at. So the third thing we're doing is we are, to that end, we are partnering with the Yale Justice Collaboratory, Yale Law School, and they're going to be doing surveys for us. They're going to survey both our police officers, and they're going to survey our community to see where we're at. Because again, I want to start from a baseline, and I want to get this right, and the mayor wants to get this right, and we want to make sure that we're exactly where we need to be, where we're addressing the needs that the community directly is looking for, what the police officers are looking for. Because at the end of the day, after all the dust settles, it's the cops and the community that are interacting together. So how do we drive that needle? How do we move those feet forward to make sure that we're exactly where we have to be? And like I said, I'll say it again, none of this happens without a progressive mayor like Mayor Spano. Someone who, every time we bring an idea to him, every time we bring a concept to him, he asks the right questions, he's insightful, he's thoughtful, he's interested, and then at the end of the day, he allows us and gives us the tools and resources we need to move that forward. So again, many thanks to the Mayor Spano.
And before I take any questions, just one last final thought. I want to say, again, in this country, policing is not the problem. Policing is the solution to what ails our community. And I want to say thank you, and we've proven that here in Yonkers, because since 2012, we reimagined our police department. We have made over 100 different changes to the way we police. We banned chokeholds a long time ago. We've done the things that departments are talking about doing today that we've done years ago. And we've done it at the same time reducing our crime rate. 42% were the lowest crime rate in recorded history, and we are the safest city of our size in America. That says a lot about the men and women in our city who go out there to serve and protect us, and I want to say thank you. And they'll continue to do a great job for us. So with that, are there any questions for me, Commissioner?
I have a question, Mayor. The conversation about cameras started a long time ago. This is nothing new. But is it because of the current situation, the rallies, the protests, that this has been that expedited the implementation of it?
I think so, yeah. I think that speaking with Keith Olson, I'll let you speak to him on your own, the George Floyd incident showed that there was a need for reform, a greater reform, that there was that the public, especially African American community, there was a developing distrust. We certainly did not want that to spill over to Yonkers, especially with all the great work we've done. We wanted to show that we could go and make the extra step. And working hand in glove with them, we were going to make this happen. Yes.
So how many officers will get a final cameras when we start on Thursday?
So the question was how many officers are going to be involved in the pilot program? That is going to be 16 officers. And what we've done is we've done 2 shifts, what we call them tours. So the officers that will be using them, this is the Chira, that's ET, they'll be using them from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight. And they're going to be used in the 3rd precinct and the 4th precinct. When we get to the bigger rollout, when we finally settle on a vendor in 2021, it'll essentially, we've kind of built it out conceptually that every single officer that has a regular interaction with the public in some way is going to be wearing a body camera, and that includes supervisors.
And so after the initial 3-month period, you said that you're going to roll it out next year. So what's going to happen, in the board and the pilot?
So the question was, what is going to happen during the pilot program? So
Because the initial pilot program is 3 months, like what happens between the end of the pilot program and you picking and choosing an actual vendor?
yeah, so during that period, we will be researching what we find with the Axon program. So Axon is the company that we have partnered with to do the pilot program. In that time, after the conference, you come up and take a look. Like, for example, there's a lot of different types of ways that you can hold the body with a camera. You don't get this right unless you consult with the actual police officers using the equipment. We have to make sure, as the mayor said, there's always going to be unforeseen situations that we haven't planned for. So the body worn camera pilot program gives us an opportunity for that. In the meantime, at the same time, there's 2 parallel tracks. And the one track is that we'll be talking with the Board of Contract and Supply, which we refer to as BOCS. We have to go through New York State guidelines. These aren't our own. These are done by New York State. They set up guidelines about how to bid for a process like this. That work, to your question, is being done already. And to the mayor's point, we already know it's going to cost us around $1.7 million. And like I said, I know that we have the support of the council to find the resources to pay for it. So the 2 parallel tracks are going to be vetting out this equipment, seeing what we need to do, talking very comprehensively with the officers using the equipment, and then on top of that, we'll be moving towards setting up a request for proposal, or what we refer to as an RFP, for a final vendor.
Just real quick, don't forget, 2021 is in 3 months. So, a couple months, right? So, we don't plan to go dark. We don't plan to go dark. So, our plan is to go from this to full implementation. That's our goal, and I expect that we're going to get there.
Commissioner, in a kind of roundabout way, was there some advantage to delaying the implementation of body-worn cameras simply because the technology improves every year? If you had gone all in early, you'd now be looking to upgrade, or you'd be working with clunky older technology, it seems to me.
That's a good point, and it is true. Like, the longer you wait, look, we know when we had this conversation earlier that technology changes monthly, weekly, daily as far as improvements, and there's so many different iterations of technology like this. So, to your point, not only is the equipment getting better each and every day, but we're getting more and more research, we're getting more and more data from other police departments that have already implemented this, so we're not going to be making mistakes that they've made. And I wouldn't even call them mistakes, it's just things that as more of this police departments draw in body-worn cameras online, there's a learning curve, and so we have avoided a lot of the early missteps of the technology because we're doing it now, and I think in years from now we'll be even better.
And a follow-up on your comments about Project Able. I think for a lot of people who've watched the body-worn camera of Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd, it's upsetting that the other cops didn't swoop in there and pull him off and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? So what will Project Able do to change the culture where a rookie cop, 2 or 3 days on the job, will feel empowered to go up to a 19-year-old vet in a situation like that and say, yo, you have to back off, there's something wrong.
So the first question with respect to what we saw happen in Minneapolis is, and again, people can challenge me and say, well, it could have happened. I don't believe it ever would have happened in the vast majority of police departments where someone wouldn't have said, stop right now. So there's that. To the second question, I think what Project Able, the intention of it is, and I think what we're going to do with it is, it's going to, because it is a cultural change. It is, and we have to, and this is why I say all the time about the Department of Justice being involved in Yonkers is, it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to us, because the same way Tiger Woods at one point was the greatest golfer in the world, he still had a swing coach, and you can't learn things just by yourself. You have to have other people take a step back and take a look at you. I think that's what the Project Able will help us, is that we're going to give officers tools how to do this where it doesn't, because let's face it, there's many, many more situations where there might be a bad interaction with a citizen that doesn't rise to the level of murder. So how do we take even those small microaggressions, those small difficult situations, and have the officers work in tandem, in 3s and 4s to help just feather out that confrontation to the point where everybody walks away satisfied. So I think that the tools there, and there's another big component of Project Able with health and wellness, because there is an understanding, and I think sometimes it's lost, and I want to point out how much these officers go through, especially in recent events, about some of the hate that is just leveled on them. And so we need to make sure that they're emotionally ready and their well-being is in good shape so they can go out and treat everybody as well as they can. Because that's really the name of the game.
Finally, do you mind doing just a little show and tell with what you have here in the live streaming with this officer here?
Sure. Absolutely. So this is, everybody ready? So this is what you would see from body-worn camera footage. Now, there's a couple of interesting things about this. First of all, this is a 120-degree view. So it's not just straight ahead, it's 120 degrees. Obviously, you can see to the left and the right. The other thing that's interesting is this resolution is what they refer to as 720. 720 is not, and I know most of the people in the journalism world know this, that 720 isn't really a great resolution. What they do with body cameras is the resolution is what the human eye sees, because we want to recreate exactly what the officers experienced, not just from an audio sense, but also from a visual sense. So what you're seeing here is what the human eye sees in most people. I mean, I need glasses to read, but you know what I'm saying. So that's what you're looking at here. These are the docking stations. So this is an important thing. So when the officer comes in at the end of his tour or her tour, ET or the chair will come in and they will put their body-worn camera footage into a docking station. What that does is it uploads into the cloud. We're using a Microsoft platform that is run by evidence.com, which is the cloud system that is used by Axon. And that goes up into the cloud after they tag, what they refer to as tagging, because remember, there are lots of reasons why you don't want to have video footage maintained, right? So there's so many different interactions. For example, one of the recommendations we had from the Police Executive Research Forum series, their recommendation matrix was, and this was at the behest of the ACLU, was if it is non-criminal and just a regular public interaction that has no evidentiary value, it's only available between 45 and 90 days. So we want to cut that out for the rights of people not to be, we're not holding recordings. A car accident is not going to be held as long as a murder investigation. So there's different points where we have to kind of parse this out. It's called tagging. But the officer doesn't do anything as far as cutting any of the video, and they can't cut any of the video. So there's different, obviously, user permissions. So at the officer's level, they can't modify anything. They can tag it and say, this was a robbery, this was an interaction that means nothing, this was a car accident, but they can't, modify any video. And obviously that's for reasons of, we want to show that there's redundancy there, that the video isn't tampered with. So they put it in, it goes up to the cloud, and then it's up there and then it gets parsed out for discovery purposes, which I know everyone's familiar with. We have to get that to the district attorney's office. Evidence.com provides a great platform for prosecutors where we can send all this information up so they can take what they need for criminal prosecutions. This here, if you get closer, these are the different ways to attach the cameras to the officer's shirt. And so we're not there yet, but again, I'm a big believer in going right to the level of execution. I may have my own opinion. I'm not wearing one on a regular basis. They are. ET is wearing one, the chair is wearing one. So I want to hear directly from them specifically what they think works best. Because again, with any technology or any tools for our officers, if they're comfortable, the equipment is used more properly and better. So.
And the live streaming function, is that something you would invest in?
I think we might. We're not there yet, and I think, Tony, a lot of this is going to end up coming down to what we feel is best through the pilot program. So the whole idea of the pilot program is to really vigorously review every aspect of body-worn cameras so we have the absolute best kind of portfolio of how we push this equipment out.
Yeah, Councilwoman Williams has a question.
I didn't want to ask now.
Oh, yes.
Since I have this Commissioner, thank you for mentioning this by training that that you're working on there. But there was a list of demands in the community that overall. There's 4 things that we on that list, and this is the first one. Like campus is great to see happening. It just by checking this, what about the other schools? Like cultural workshops and training, and also integrating the community with the police.
Are we done here? Okay. So Councilman Williams asked, what are the other, there were 4 demands from the public with the Yonkers Police Department about things they wanted to do. So integration into the community is already well on its way, as you know, and it's been on its way with respect to our over 40 community outreach programs. We are meeting with the people, because see what happens is when you have these protests, you have thousands of people show up, and then very quickly you have 5 people, or 10 people, or 20 people that are really here for the long haul. And those are the people we're most interested in working with because they're not leaving. So, like to that point, I had a conversation in my office with 2 such people that were at the marches, that had interest, we made connections, and we shared phone numbers, and now we're talking about those things. So we have the community outreach already. There's more community outreach going on each and every day. And as we're developing our programs, they're going to play a major role in it. So that, I hope that answers your question there.
Well, does this mean that you'll have a task force that the community's a part of?
We are going to, so that's a good question. So the question was, are we going to have a task force? The task force, because we can't have 5 million different task force, because a lot of times it becomes unwieldy, and then you don't get anything actually done. The mayor's always made a mandate of actionable steps. So the governor, as you know, has put out a New York State Police Reform Executive Order. Within that order is contained a number of mandates that each police department is to work with their, collaborate with their community to make sure they're where they need to be. The guidance came out yesterday. It's 139 pages. I started to read it, and then I came here, so we'll be reading it more. So that interaction is going to be a large part of the police reform initiative, where that's going to be where we'll be going over each and every one of the governor's mandates with the community to say where are we at. For example, it's important for the community to know all the things we've already done. Like there's a lot of interest in early intervention systems. So an early intervention warning system is if an officer has a number of complaints in a period of time, that we would bring that officer in and look at the behavior as a totality. And that was not the case in Minneapolis, and that's what the mayor referred to earlier with respect to 18 complaints that Derek Chauvin had, and he was still on the street. It wouldn't happen here because we have early intervention already. So it's important for us to identify for our community the things that we have and the things that we don't have that we feel like are going to be beneficial, and that's where we're going with that.
I'm sorry, I misspoke with my question about the fourth item. It wasn't so much integration between the community, so as far as what community programs you have going on, but to diversify the department in that sense. Like integrating is entirely totally from the communities that they were represented in the department.
Okay. Well, this be an ongoing discussion, you know that. Any other questions?
Yeah, Commissioner, Mayor.
I want to know what are some of the policies where when officers need to turn black cameras on, when they arrive in a situation.
Yeah, that is, we're still almost done. We've gotten an agreement. We understand where we're going. We haven't published it yet. But like I said, the best place to go for that right now, and if you want to do it right now, you Google it, is the Police Executive Research Forum study on body-worn cameras. It's published in 2014. It's open source information, and it'll give you all those recommendations. So we almost follow those recommendations to a T.
Now, Commissioner, what any other company suppliers that were also interested in providing this service to the City of Yonkers, and what was the criteria for you to choose this company versus another company?
I think one of the biggest criteria was how quickly they could move, whether they could get us the equipment, get us the training, and we could be up and ready to go with respect to the pilot program. So that was the first thing. We already have, so Axon is, the tasers are a subsidiary of Axon. That makes things easier for us too, because we already have the taser program, and Axon owns tasers, so that's another easy transition. So this was about, so you have 2 questions that I'm going to answer here. One is the way we wanted, because listen, to have credibility with the community and to show that we're serious about this, because we absolutely are serious about this, we want to move as quickly as possible. Some folks don't understand how long these things take. This was done very, very quickly when you compare it to other initiatives that are this large, when you have negotiation going on. So there's that. But the other piece is that Axon has a big portion of the body-worn camera market, probably, I believe it's almost like 80%. So we know that this is a company and a platform that already has a lot of the things that you'd want in a body-worn camera. Now, ultimately, we have to go through, as the mayor said, the RFP process, the VOCS process, and that is going to really decide who the vendor is. But we definitely have a number of absolute mandates for any company that's going to come in here and want to do business with the City of Yonkers with respect to body-worn cameras.
No, 90 days when this expires.
We'll just do any other questions you might have, we'll do individually, because I have pressing. beat out the
Nadia has one.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so the question is, when are they going to be turned on? So in the policy, we have put a number of redundancies in place. So they are to be turned on anytime there's a citizen interaction. And even with our radio codes, which you're familiar with, 10.4 or 10.5, we've actually created a radio code that if the officer has not yet turned it on, when they exit their car, there will be a reminder right at 10:50, which means did you turn on the body worn camera. Another thing is people need to understand is, like, obviously for personal privacy, we can't have them on in the precinct, in the locker room, in the bathroom. If there are victims of serious crimes, especially sexual crimes, women and children, we will give the victim an opportunity to ask us to turn it off on camera, which we think is good. And there's also HIPAA requirements that we have to work through in hospitals. There's requirements in schools, so there's a lot of things that go into it, but we have a very good policy about it.
But they're effective as of today.
They are effective. We are going live as, sorry? Thursday.
As of Thursday. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can the Commissioner, Commissioner, can you call him?
Commissioner?
Commissioner. Commissioner.
Oh yeah. Can I take this thing off, please?
Yes.
All right.
Commissioner, I got a question from our audience.
Okay.
In 90 days, this project will be completed. 2021, it will be implemented.
Yes.
In between, what will be done? And 2021, but when? Do you have a time frame? End of 21, middle of 21? What's the time frame?
The time frame and the goal is to go the minute the pilot program shuts down December 31st, that we start on the regular program January 1st. That's the goal. That's where I think we're going to be. That's my hope. That's my belief. So there is going to be no, as the mayor said, there's going to be no gap. It's going to go from, if everything goes right with purchasing and RFP and finding funding and all that, and I believe it will, because there's a real commitment here between the mayor and the city council. I believe that it's going to go up to the December 31st, and we're going to be going live January 1st.
But you are a data man. This is like the conversation that we have many times. You like to analyze data. That's what drives you. If we end up on December 31st, we cannot implement it January 1st because you would have no time, or you will be checking the data as we go along.
We're going to check the data every single day from Thursday until December 31st, very carefully, because we want to make sure that we have that information. The information is going to be there, and we're going to be in a place where, listen, body-worn cameras is not particularly unique from vendor to vendor. We want to make sure, how does the public feel about it? Well, we can do that in the pilot program. How do the cops feel about it? How can we do that with the pilot program? So I believe it's going to be very seamless from December 31st, and we will have the major rollout program January 1st.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure, man.